This is our fifth video for Chapter 1. This is Chapter 1, Section 5, Multiplying Decimals. What you'll learn in this video is to multiply decimals and to solve problems involving decimals. And remember, compatible numbers are numbers that are easy to combine for mental calculations or to estimate products. The model below shows how to find 0.5 times 1.5. You're finding half of 1.5 because remember 0.5 is the same as 1/2. So let's say we're going to make our tens boxes. So we have our whole 10 for the 1 and half of a 10 for the 0.5. Next, we're going to shade in the opposite direction for the 0.5 we're multiplying for. So here is our 0.5. Where the shading overlaps is our answer. So our 10 group becomes a 100 group. So half of 100 is 50, and then half of 100 is 25. So we end up with 75 squares, or 0.75. So 0.5 times 1.5 is 0.75. To find the number of decimal places in a product, add the number of decimal places in the factors. This is just a model showing how to figure out the multiplication of decimals. You do not have to do it this way. Now let's look at an example of multiplying with a decimal. So we're going to find the product of 0.47 times 8. You do not have to line up the decimal points the way that we did in addition and subtraction. In multiplication, you just line up the numbers like you would in any problem, and then we deal with the decimal point later. So 7 times 8 is 56, so bring down the 6, carry the 5. 8 times 4 is 32, plus 5 is 37, drop the 7, carry the 3. Then 8 times 0 is 0, plus the 3 we carried, 3.75. The reason it's 0.75 is you add up the decimal places. So in our first number we have 2 decimal places, 1, 2. In our second number we don't have any. So our total number of decimal places we need in our answer is 2. So you add up the decimal places in the problem, then count over to where your decimal goes. Pause the video and try these two in your notebook. Be sure to label them as either exercise or quick check, and 1A and 1B. Show all your work and write down the original problem. Now, you can show multiplication in 3 ways. You can show it with the typical multiplication sign that we've been using for years. Once we get into things with variables, we tend to like to use just a dot, because when you're using things with the variables where you might have other letters involved, it can get confusing to have x be your variable and use x for multiplication. And the last way is to put one number inside of parentheses, because when you have one number sitting right next to parentheses, it means multiplication. Let's look at an example of multiplying decimals. So we want to find the product of 1.31 times 2.4. So we have 1.31, which has 2 decimal places, times 2.4, which has 1 decimal place. So that lets us know that we need 3 decimal places in our answer. So you do your multiplication. We would normally, the way we do math, we would add the 0 there. Then just do your multiplication like you would any 2 and 3 digit numbers. Then count up your decimal places, 1, 2, 3, and count over in your answer, 1, 2, 3, and that's where your decimal would need to go in your answer. So to check for reasonableness, it makes sense that a number slightly greater than 1 times a number slightly greater than 2 equals a product of 3. Because 1.3 is just a little bit bigger than 1, and 2.4 is just a little bit bigger than 2. So it's like if we're saying 2 times 1 plus a little would be a little bit bigger than 2. Pause the video and do these 3 in your notebook. Be sure to show all your work and write down the original problem. Let's look at another example. This is predicting growth. Say a eucalyptus tree grows 5.4 meters in 1 year. At that rate, how much does the tree grow in 3.5 years? So first we're going to estimate. So we know 3.5 is the number of years times how much it grows per 1 year. So 3.5 times 5.45. So 3.5 would round up to 4, and 5.45 would round down to 5. So our estimate is 20. Then we can do the math and see if our estimate was close. So 5.45 has 2 decimal places, and 3.5 has 1 decimal place. Do your multiplication, add it up, count over. Your answer is 19.075. At that rate, the tree grows about 19.05 meters in 3.5 years. So again, to check for reasonableness, 19.075 is pretty close to 20, so our answer is reasonable. Pause the video and try this quick check in your notebook. Be sure to show all your work and write down the original problem. Now it's time to check your understanding. Be sure to label it as check your understanding in your notebook. Write down all the problems and show all your work. Enjoy the rest of your evening, and I'll see you tomorrow.